Senator Tom Cotton from Arkansas joins us now. Senator, maybe you can explain this to me. If the argument for not producing oil, gas, and coal domestically is that it's bad for Mother Earth, how is it okay to import oil from other countries like we had been from Russia, and even last year 1 million barrels of oil from Iran? Why is he sending emissaries to Venezuela, and why is he meeting with the pariah nation of Saudi Arabia and begging OPEC every other day?
Sean, it's good to be on with you, but I think you're going to have to find someone smarter than I am to explain that to you.
Well, you went to Harvard, not me, so just saying.
It is mystifying while Joe Biden and all these Democrats are perfectly A-OK with oil coming from Iran and Venezuela, which I would add, by the way, have oil and gas industries that are much less environmentally friendly than ours. They'll go begging hat in hand to those countries, but they won't go to Arkansas and Louisiana and Texas and North Dakota to get more oil. Or for that matter, why they look down their nose at American coal miners and roughnecks, but turn a blind eye to Chinese slaves making their solar panels or African child laborers digging the minerals for their electric cars. It's like they think that if the oil is produced out of sight and out of mind, that somehow it doesn't contribute to their feared greenhouse gas emissions. But of course, that's not the case. And my biggest problem with Joe Biden going overseas is that no American president should have to go overseas to ask anyone for oil and gas. Certainly not Iran and Venezuela, but not even close friends like Canada and Norway. We've been blessed with those resources here in America. We should produce them in America.
Well, we should, but the Keystone XL pipeline is a case in point. If we're going to import some energy from abroad, which wasn't necessary by the time Donald Trump left office, we were energy independent and a net exporter of energy. But the Alberta Premier has been very clear that had we continued building the Keystone XL pipeline, it would have been done now a long time ago, and we would be importing 900,000 barrels of Canadian oil every day. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Justin Trudeau, but Canada is not a hostile regime towards us. It's a friendly nation. We have good relationship with them. If we're going to import energy from anywhere else, that would be the first place I'd look, or Mexico would be another place.
Yeah, I mean, Sean, you're right that if you expand the horizon from not just the United States, but to North America, I mean, we are not just energy independent as a continent, but we dominate the world markets. But it starts with producing more oil and gas at home. The Keystone Pipeline is a good example of that. That was a pipeline that should have built long ago, but it's far from the only pipeline we need. We also need things like liquefied natural gas export facilities so we can sell our abundance of gas, for instance, to countries like Germany that need new gas supplies. We need to have more leases and permits on federal lands and federal waters. There's no single thing we can do to help save our oil and gas industry in America because there's no single weapon the Democrats have used against it. It's been slow strangulation, but we have to get their hands off the neck of America's oil and gas producers so they can start once again producing the resources that we need to fuel our cars and to fuel our tractors and to heat our homes. We can do that, just like we did during the last administration.
We're still paying twice what we paid when he first came into office. And they're saying, well, gas prices have come down. So once it was kind of acknowledged that Saudi Arabia was kind of lukewarm at best to any idea of increasing production, and if you go back to the G7, it was President Macron that said to Biden, OPEC and Saudi Arabia are kind of tapped out in terms of their production capabilities anyway. And that's kind of the message that Joe got. Well, then, the price of a barrel of oil, went up dramatically in the last 2 days.
Yeah, isn't it amazing, Sean, that these Democrats are now celebrating the fact that gas prices have gone down by 40 or 50 cents in some places after they drove them up by more than $3? I mean, when Joe Biden took office, gas was barely $2.50 in most places in America. And it had been a lot lower than that for much of the Trump administration. And it could be that low again if the Democrats would stop their ideological war against the fossil fuel industry.
Look at it from every perspective. From a national security perspective, I think it's much better for the United States if we're the masters of our own destiny. In other words, it shouldn't matter what happens in the Straits of Hormuz and whatever games the Iranians might be playing on any given day. We shouldn't have to worry about the Saudis loving us. I don't care if the Saudis like us or not. I'm not particularly that fond of them. Or OPEC nations that have held, put a gun to our head on multiple occasions over the many decades. To me, all of this is just ridiculous when you consider, and you made the point, we do it faster, we do it cheaper, and we do it cleaner than anybody else. So it's good for national security. It creates high-paying jobs for Americans. These are career jobs for American citizens. It would do a lot to lower the inflation issue that has been plaguing, especially the poor, the middle class, and people on fixed incomes. And then we could even produce extra natural gas and provide our Western European allies, and that would increase their national security.
All extraordinarily compelling reasons why we should be producing as much oil and gas and coal as we can. And in particular, that inflation point, Sean, I just want to stress that for your listeners. Energy inflation is the worst kind of inflation because it drives all other kinds. I mean, people know that, they're paying, sometimes almost double what they used to pay for just a carton of eggs and everything else in the grocery store. A lot of that is from the rise in energy prices. Just look at your typical Arkansas farmer. They use a lot of natural gas in their fertilizers and their pesticides. They use diesel for their tractors and their farm equipment. Diesel fuels the trucks that take their crops to market and then get it to the grocery stores. And then the grocery stores use electricity to run the lights and run the freezers and run the refrigerators. All of that feeds into the price of eggs, the price of chicken, the price of pork, the price of bread. That's why there's so much inflation throughout our economy. It all gets back at root to energy inflation, which again, is not an accident. It's not a mishap of Democratic policy. This is what they wanted. Joe Biden promised in the campaign that he would eliminate fossil fuels. This is exactly what they wanted to do to the American people.
Your name comes up a lot when the discussion goes towards who might potentially be presidential, may have presidential ambitions or may one day consider running for president. Have you ever thought about it?
Well, I appreciate the question, Sean. But,
no, you really don't. To be honest, you don't appreciate the question. You're going to duck and dodge like everybody else that I asked the question to, which, by the way, I don't blame you. I'm just saying.
This. Whether it's you asking me or my friends in Arkansas encouraging me, it's flattering that you would even consider the possibility. But I had a drill sergeant in basic training, and anytime we did basic rifle marksmanship, he'd always remind us, private, focus on the 25-meter target. There are 300-meter targets out there, but you can reach those in the distance once you hit the 25-meter target. And right now, the 25-meter target is going to be stopping the last gasp of the Biden agenda in Congress and then winning back the Congress in November so we can put the brakes on it irreversibly. And I'll focus on those more distant targets once.
All right, so then let me ask you about it, because I think the House is going to be a little easier than the Senate, but you got every bellwether state up or in play this election season. I think Marco Rubio will win in Florida. I'm pretty confident about that. Herschel Walker is going to have a tight run against Raphael Warnock in Georgia, but I think he can win that race. I know Tim Scott will win his race in South Carolina. North Carolina, I think, is a very winnable race. Ron Johnson, I'm confident, will get the support of the people of Wisconsin. By the way, they're throwing tens of millions of dollars to destroy him in Wisconsin, so we got to pay attention to it. We've got Ohio in play. We got Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania, Vance in Ohio. We don't know who the nominee will be in Missouri. Then we got Nevada. Then we got Arizona. Then we got Lisa Murkowski being primaried by Chewbacca. And then maybe we can look at Colorado and Washington State even.
Yeah, so Sean, you laid it out pretty well. I'm confident that every Republican who's running for re-election, and you mentioned a lot of them, like Ron Johnson, like Marco Rubio, like Tim Scott, will win and win handily. Now, we do have some seats that we have to defend, but we've got great nominees already in those seats. You mentioned Mehmet Oz in Pennsylvania. We got Ted Budd in North Carolina. We got J.D. Vance in Ohio. These are all capable candidates who are going to hold on to Republican seats. And then we got a lot of pickup opportunities. Adam Laxalt is already our nominee out in Nevada. He's going to beat Kathy Cortez Masto. Herschel Walker is going to beat Raphael Warnock. We're still waiting for our primaries to finish in New Hampshire and Arizona, but I think those are great opportunities as well. And then a couple sleeper races you mentioned is Joe O'Dea in Colorado against Michael Bennett, and especially Tiffany Smiley up in Washington State. Tiffany and her husband have a great story. He was blinded in Iraq a year before I was there. She quit her job. She moved to Walter Reed. She cared for him. She fought back against the Army bureaucracy, which wanted to medically retire him. He went on to serve 10 years as the only active duty officer in the Army who was blind. They've become great advocates for America's veterans, and now she's going to replace Patty Murray in the United States Senate. So I think we're going to win the House in a landslide, and I think we're going to, all these Senate races in the end are going to break our way. It's just that Senate races always take a little bit longer to develop, and they usually don't break until Labor Day or a little bit after that.
Quick break, more with Senator Tom Cotton, the great state of Arkansas. Then your call's coming up. All right, more with Senator Tom Cotton, the great state of Arkansas, is with us. Let's talk about your role. Are you planning on campaigning for a lot of these candidates?
Yeah, I am, Sean. I've already been in a few places campaigning for folks who are already our nominees or who are incumbents, like Chuck Grassley in Iowa last week. I'm going to be up in New Hampshire.
By the way, Chuck Grassley doesn't need your help. Chuck Grassley's going to get on his bus and go to every county in Iowa the way he has for however many years in the Senate, and he's going to win.
He's probably the hardest working man in the Senate. I've been out to Nevada already for Adam Laxalt. I expect to go back.
He's a great candidate. I like him a lot.
Adam is a great candidate. I'm going to be down in North Carolina in a few weeks for Ted Budd, who's going to be a very strong senator.
He's a strong candidate too. I agree.
And then when some of these other states are settled, like Arizona and like New Hampshire, I also expect to be campaigning there. So I'm looking forward to hitting the trail later this year. The only thing more fun than campaigning for oneself is campaigning for other people.
Well, there's a little less pressure. You don't have to worry as much, although you're putting your own credibility on the line. I will say that I think we have a great slate of candidates, and as the people, for example, you mentioned pickups, we have a pickup opportunity in Georgia. I would love to see Herschel win. And I mean, the media has turned on him in such a vile and vicious way. And meanwhile, they're ignoring all of these horrible stories about Warnock and his family. And it's so frustrating to me.
Well, it's true that Raphael Warnock has something of a checkered past as well, and the Democratic media doesn't want to address that while they pile on Herschel Walker. But more fundamentally, here's what's true, Sean, is that a vote for Raphael Warnock is a vote for Joe Biden and $5 a gallon gas and rampant crime in our cities and an open border in crisis. Herschel Walker will vote against all of those things. He will vote to put the brakes on the Biden agenda, and that's exactly what I think the people of Georgia want from their next senator.
We definitely need some unity in Georgia. There's been too much battling within the ranks for my liking. Senator Tom Cotton, always love having you. Thank you for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean. Great to be on with you.